Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 49th verse of the 9th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the last verse of this chapter. Pitra chanumato raja vasudevānumoditaha chakara rajyam dharmena pitrupaitamaham vibhuhu. The meaning of this verse is, after this, the great religious king Maharaj Yudhishthira executed the royal power in the kingdom strictly according to the codes and royal principles approved by his uncle and confirmed by Lord Sri Krishna. So, this is the ending of this chapter. What did Yudhishthira do after Bhishma Deva passed away? He performed a funeral ceremony and the sages glorified Krishna and went back to their respective hermitages. Then Krishna and Yudhishthira immediately returned to the palace of Hastinapura to pacify Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. And after that, Yudhishthira assumed responsibility of ruling the entire world exactly in accordance with the codes and principles given in the Shastras, approved by Dhritarashtra, his uncle, and by Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, Maharaj Yudhishthira was not a mere tax collector. He was always conscious of his duty as a king, which is no less than that of a father or spiritual master. King means he is a very responsible person in the society. He has got responsibility towards the citizens who are under his care. Citizens are under his care. So, Prabhupada explains the Vedic conception of what is the duty of a king. The king is to see to the welfare of the citizens from all angles of social, political, economic, and spiritual upliftment. This is a great responsibility of the king in the Vedic culture as given in the scriptures. There's something called Raj Dharma, which describes the duties of the Raja or the king. What are the duties of a king? So Prabhupada says Raj Dharma is a great science. Elsewhere he describes this. Unlike modern diplomacy for political supremacy, being a king or an emperor is actually based on following the science of Raj Dharma as given in the Dharma Shastras. The kings were trained systematically to become munificent and not merely be tax collectors. Not that I am the king and I enjoy power, wealth, and a nice army, and then simply lord over everyone else and try to suppress any rebellion, quell any uprising. So this is not the way to rule the kingdom. The responsibility is there for the king towards his citizens, ensure the upliftment of the citizens. Ultimately, the citizens have to become liberated by practicing spiritual life, becoming responsible to understand the great opportunity as a human being. This is the responsibility of the king. The kings were trained to perform different sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subjects. Only for the prosperity of the citizens, he would perform sacrifices. And the king was to lead the prajas to the attainment of salvation. That was the great duty of the king. So, Prabhupada says, the father, the spiritual master, and the king are all natural leaders of their respective dependents. And they are not to become irresponsible in the matter of leading their subjects to the path of ultimate liberation from birth, death, disease, and old age. This is the responsibility. Whether somebody is a father, or somebody is a spiritual master, or somebody is a king. Father has got responsibility towards his children, and the spiritual master has got responsibility towards his disciples, and the king has got responsibility towards the citizens whom he is ruling. So they have to liberate ultimately their dependents from birth, death, diseases, and old age. This is the prerogative of the human being. When you got a human form of life, you are meant to prepare yourself to attain ultimate liberation from these four fundamental miseries which is there throughout the entire material creation. So Krishna instructs in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. These are the four fundamental miseries, and one should aim how to get out by cultivating Krishna consciousness under the able guidance, leadership, direction of the superiors. In modern days, Prabhupada says, as opposed to what was actually the Vedic culture, modern days, the people in general occupy the administration by the strength of manipulated votes, but they are never trained in the primary duties of the king. And everyone cannot be trained unless they have some basic qualification. Under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. They try somehow make people happy, but it is not going to happen unless they are trained how to ensure happiness of the citizens under all circumstances. So these modern day administrators, they increase the tax to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes. They don't do the real duties of an administrator or a king or a government leader or government head. They don't perform their duties. Now, in the Vedic times or the Vedic culture, Vedic civilization, the qualified Brahmanas are meant to give direction to the kings for proper administration in terms of the scriptures like Manu Samhita and the Dharma Shastras of Parashara Smriti. They describe exactly how the king should rule, and the king is given instructions and directions according to the codes given in the Manu Samhita and other Dharma Shastras. So the Brahmanas are well versed in these scriptures, and they give correct advice, correct guidance to the kings. If the king is pious, religious, chivalrous, and munificent, the citizens generally will follow him. It's natural. Yatha Raja Tatha Praja. Such a king is never a lazy, sensuous person living at the cost of the subjects, but he is always alert to kill thieves and dacoits in the kingdom to protect the weaker sections of the society. The kings the pious kings in the former days were not merciful to dacoits and thieves in the name of nonsensical ahimsa. A king should never adopt foolishly the policy of non-violence. It's like modern day politicians, they say non-violence. No, they should never be non-violent when it comes to punishing thieves and dacoits. They should never show non-violence principles. Now the thieves and dacoits were punished in an exemplary way so that in future no one would dare commit such nuisance in an organized form. That was the way. Prabhupada says even about 150 years ago in Kashmir, the ruling king was so very strict in punishing the thieves that if somebody dropped, let's say, a gold coin on the way, that gold coin would lie on the street till the actual owner who has lost it comes and picks it up. Nobody else dare touch that because it's not theirs. The king would punish those who would steal or take somebody else's wealth in such a way that if somebody was caught stealing, their fingers would be cut off. So this is the way to rule, that there will be no nuisance of these thieves, rogues, plunderers and antisocial elements. Nobody dare do any crime. That is the way to rule. So, Prabhupada says in the purport, the king must know that the human form of life is meant for liberating the trapped soul from the bondage of material conditions. Therefore, the king's duty is to see that the citizens are properly looked after to attain the highest stage of perfection. The king has got a goal, has got a target, how the citizens can get out of this material bondage. King Yudhishthira followed these principles strictly, as will be explained in the next chapter. Not only did he follow the principles, but he got approval also from his old uncle, who was experienced in political affairs, and that was also confirmed by Lord Sri Krishna, the speaker of the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. See, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita first to sun god because they are to rule in accordance with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. That's why Krishna spoke to sun god. Later he spoke to Arjuna, who was also a Kshatriya. Rulers. Maharaj Yudhishthira is the ideal monarch, and monarchy under a trained king like Maharaj Yudhishthira is by far the most superior form of government, superior to modern republics or governments of the people by the people. Nowadays people are very proud that we have got what is called as democracy. But in democracy, the defect is that the mass of people who elect their leaders or their rulers, they are, especially in the Age of Kali, they are basically low-born, they are ill-trained, they are unfortunate and badly associated. This is described in the Bhagavatam. In Kali Yuga, people are disqualified in so many ways. So they themselves do not know the highest perfectional aim of life. Therefore, votes cast by them actually have no value. And persons elected by such illiterate people, irresponsible votes cannot be, people elected by such irresponsible votes cannot be responsible representatives like Maharaj Yudhishthira. So the conclusion is, a trained Kshatriya who can rule according to the codes of Dharma Shastra is far, far superior than an elected government by the people who don't have the qualification to select a proper government leader. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.